So we have a huge list of answers thanks to an AMA BioWare created recently over on Twitter, with dozens of questions being answered and a lot of topics being talked about. There's a lot of stuff about the fixes and the changes the game has gone through, more content, details, future plans, microtransactions and everything else in between. We're going to go over these in just a bit, and I will try covering the more important questions and answers and generally try to avoid the ones that aren't specific enough. So if you guys enjoyed this, a thumbs up would be much appreciated. And let's get to it. I want to first go over some of the additional fixes and changes confirmed for launch, as well as the team's plan to bring these in after the game goes live. According to Ben Irving over on Twitter, they will start doing patch notes after the 15th on this month. Until then, we don't have any patch notes, but you do have a list of bug fixes and other balancing stuff that has been done, and you can see that on the official BioWare blog section. And it was confirmed that there's going to be 2 updates, one for the 15th and one for the 22nd. You're also going to see faster load times at launch, though I didn't see anything being mentioned about the loading screens themselves, so hopefully that also gets addressed soon. Speaking about stuff being faster, there's also a clarification about the moving speed in Fort Tarsis. So yes, we will have sprint on launch in Fort Tarsis with movement responsiveness and camera improvements. Later on it was also confirmed that the run speed was also being increased as far as it was technically allowed, but the walk speed was brought down a little bit, as it would cause you to accidentally move past or even miss interaction points or NPCs. Some of the more annoying bugs that were also fixed include the echoes being lost if one of the party members left during the stronghold. You probably had this happening to you as well when trying to find that shiny orb of light needed to silence the Shaper relics. If somebody disconnected while having that upon them, sometimes the orb would be forever lost and progress would be almost impossible after that point. So yeah, I'm glad this one also got addressed. There was another one with XP and loot being lost upon disconnecting before finishing an expedition or a stronghold, and this was not intended. There is a fix for that in the full game, and the way it is intended is for you to be rewarded all of the XP and loot you got up until the point of disconnecting or exiting the game, and you can regain all of that in the next expedition screen or end screen you get into. Another big one was for the Ps4 Controller Support for the PC version. It seems that there's a driver for that, but Anthem does not support that natively. I'm not really certain if Chad here was referring to a driver they have created or to a driver that can be found and downloaded over from the internet, for example the one called DS for Windows. Either way, if you have DS for Windows, that should do the trick for you anyway. All in all, expect for Anthem to continue to grow and be supported over the years, as well as for having balancing changes along the way. Balancing changes will be forever according to Ben Irving, which means that whenever there's new content, new items, or new builds being discovered, there's always going to be balancing done to ensure that all of the javelins are viable for all content. All in all, expect for Anthem to continue to grow and be supported over the years, as well as for having balancing changes along the way. Balancing changes will be forever according to Ben Irving, but going over the content, it's likely we'll get to see raids in the first year of Anthem's release. It was later confirmed that cataclysms represent this type of aspirational content, which we know we'll get to see as soon as March of this year according to their latest content release schedule. While these cataclysms aren't technically called raids, and we also don't know the number of people that can take part in, it is said to be a more difficult type of content that includes the top rewards, and in a past interview it's been said that these cataclysms are situated between a Destiny Strike and raid in terms of length and difficulty. Speaking of content, it's now obvious that with the introduction of chapters, we're most probably going to see a mix of permanent content as well as temporary ones. According to Ben Irving over on Twitter, some of the things might be available only at that time and may come back later, and others will be permanently available. Another big one is in regards of unique drops or lack thereof. As you may or may not know, all loot can drop from all encounters, with difficulty and level increasing the odds for better loot, of course. There are no specific loot drops from specific encounters, at least not at launch, but the team is looking into something like that. I'm not going to debate the positives and the negatives about this system, but I do want to say that having some unique drops from certain bosses gives you an additional reason to run the same type of content over and over if you know that you're going to be rewarded in a certain way. One of the biggest questions asked was why can't items or loadouts be changed on the fly, like for example during a stronghold or in the middle of an expedition instead of just at the forge. The answer to that question is simply because BioWare BioWare does not want your team to have to wait for you while you're on the field. Anthem is all about high mobility and moving fast, and I tend to agree with this. Loadouts can be made before missions, and I always despise the fact that I had to wait for party members to redo their loadouts because they just got a couple of jobs that were good for them, which sometimes ends up taking way too long and severely interrupts the flow of combat, making things unnecessarily long. So that is actually a very good reason to make loadouts only before the missions. In terms of voting to kick somebody out of the party in case they're going AFK, BioWare said that they would rather improve AFK times and things like that. Adding a vote to kick function ends up promoting toxicity among players more than anything else, and I tend to agree with the statement as long as nobody else in the party can abuse the mechanics to halt progress for the rest of the team members, like picking for example a Norb or a Relic and never turning it in. I think there are situations in which these members could be kicked, but as long as there's no way for them to abuse these types of systems, I really don't mind not having a vote to kick option. There is also a great deal of talk about the open world in Anthem and the free play. One of the main concerns in the demo was that people thinking they couldn't explore the entire map, fearing they will get that exiting boundaries map alert. Well, that was just for the demo, as it was obvious we had access only to a part of the map. For the full game, that is not going to be the case. In free play, you're going to be able to pretty much explore all of the regions in the game, and there's about 9 of them in total, I believe. It's just the missions and the strongholds having this, and you will get teleported back to your crew if you stray too far off from them. Now, in terms of increasing player count, while in free roam, it's unlikely we'll ever see launch bay numbers, which is currently set to 16. So while in free play, we might never get to see 16 players in total on the same map, and that is because there's a lot more going on in free play than on launch bay. But that kind of indirectly implies that there might be lower numbers than that, for example 6 or 8 party members. Not really sure about that, but I would definitely love to see some 8-man raids going on in Anthem. We will also get new activities and things to do in free play over time, and races might very well be some of them. I think races with obstacles would be very cool in this game, honestly. It just fits the theme for some reason, especially since you're so agile, so mobile with almost all of the classes in the game. Finally, in the open world category, it's been confirmed that you can jump into your friend's free play session as long as he or she has started it, but only if there is a free spot left. Otherwise, you would both have to group up and launch a new expedition to play together. So yeah, if at any point this wasn't clarified, now you have it. Now, in terms of your own character, the personalization efforts have all been focused on the javelins themselves, while the pilot will be created by picking up some pre-generated heads from a list. I've personally played with the character creator, and the faces for both the males and the females look quite good, and I've seen a lot of options for each, like at least a couple dozens for each of the genders, and they all look kinda good. I mean, yeah, some manual controls would have been nice, but since there's no focus on your actual pilot and you barely get to see it anyway, I see why there's no many resources allocated to more advanced character creation. Adding new javelins is something that BioWare has confirmed they want to do in the future, in case you still have that question. As far as the existing javelins, BioWare does not want to enforce roles onto the classes, like having your regular tank, healer or DPS, but rather they want to offer flexibility through all of the builds for offense, defense and support. On the subject of elemental weapons, we might get to see these at some point, but they will most probably not be able to cause combos. BioWare strictly wants to keep the primers and detonators to be gear focused. As for the difference between detonator abilities and non-detonator abilities, the difference is that of course the latter do more damage than the former, and it's down to your personal choice which one you want to pick. But since we're still on the subject of items, while there's no way of preventing your items to be deleted outside of just equipping it, BioWare might be looking into a locking system in the future. But moving on to the microtransactions, the economy is still being adjusted and balanced, and BioWare wants to ensure that we can earn things in-game in reasonable amounts of time, which is most probably why we don't get to see the prices yet. Additionally, the available items in the shop seem to be on a schedule, maybe weekly, maybe monthly, maybe even both, and these items will rotate frequently, so you might see a certain skin in a certain week, while it won't be available in the next. Finally, I'll also go over the romance options, and Anthem currently has none of that, but it does seem that BioWare is totally down to bringing these options in the game in the future as long as the players want it, and from the looks of it, the fan base has expressed interest in having some romance options in the game. I mean, it's a BioWare game, so that would make sense. And that is it with the list, ladies and gentlemen. These have been the more important questions and answers, and if you want to check more of these answers, you can go ahead and check the Twitter accounts that I've posted throughout this video. In the meantime, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, also subscribe to the channel for more Anthem content, and I'll see you guys later.